This is the Disability News Report with host Arthur Aston.
Welcome back to the Disability News Report. Let's get into the news. Our first story is the Justice Department sues Uber, alleging disability discrimination. The Justice Department recently sued the rideshare company Uber, claiming that the company refused to serve those with disabilities, including passengers in wheelchairs and those traveling with service dogs. The department is suing the rideshare company for $125 million. The Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits private transportation companies from discriminating against individuals with disabilities. These companies must accommodate passengers with disabilities who are using mobility devices and those traveling with service animals. The lawsuit was filed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California on behalf of disabled passengers who have complaints to Uber or the Justice Department, citing that Uber and its drivers routinely refuse to service those individuals with disabilities. The case accuses the rideshare service and its drivers of imposing impermissible surcharges, such as cleaning fees for animal shedding and cancellation fees after refusing service to the riders with disabilities. It is also accusing drivers of refusing reasonable requests, including allowing passengers with reduced mobility to ride in the front seat of the vehicle if needed. Uber says that it does not allow drivers to deny service to someone with a service animal and requires them to accept rides from people with disabilities as long as the rider can enter the vehicle on their own. The lawsuit alleges that Uber fails to prevent or help solve disability-related discrimination, that the drivers and customer service representatives are not properly trained to understand what is required of them under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and lastly, that the company does not adequately compensate passengers who have been denied service. This news story recounts two experiences that two blind individuals had with Uber. When their rides arrived, the drivers drove off once they realized that the passengers had service dogs. The lawsuit acknowledges that disabled passengers may end up having to pay more because of being denied rides by Uber when they have to get other modes of transportation because of ride cancellations, and they also may have to pay for cleaning fees for their service dogs. A veteran with chronic pain shared his story of how, after an Uber driver denied him, his wife, and his service dog a ride to the airport, they missed their flight and had to rent a car to drive 16 hours back to their home. The stories shared in this news article are just a few of the countless stories that disabled passengers have shared about their experience with ride share companies like Uber. We hope that the lawsuit can bring about some change where passengers with disabilities are treated more fairly when they are requesting rides from rideshare companies like Uber, and that their employees at the companies will be educated on what is required of them under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we hope that some change is really being able to be seen within the companies and how they treat their disabled passengers. Our next story is Parents Fear Losing Disability Protections as Trump Slashes Civil Rights Offices. This story tells the experience of a family in North Carolina. The family includes two 15-year-old twins who both are autistic. The current administration has threatened to dismantle the United States Department of Education, which was created in 1979. The department has an Office of Civil Rights that investigates allegations of race, sex, religion, or disability-based discrimination that take place in school settings. The mother of the twins mentioned in the article filed a complaint against her children's school district with the Federal Office of Civil Rights in 2024, saying that their district did not reevaluate her children to determine their specific educational needs. The district wrongfully withdrew her children from the school. The school also failed to address bullying that was taking place against one of the twins. North Carolina law requires students with disabilities to be reevaluated every 3 years. This helps determine what is needed for each individual student as they get older. Further complicating a process that is already time-consuming, confusing, and expensive because of lawyer fees, fear about the Department of Education closing has parents worried that it will then be even more difficult to file complaints when students are being discriminated against. Earlier this year, the Education Department fired almost half of its staff of 4,100 employees and closed 7 of the 12 regional offices of the Office of Civil Rights. The president also signed an executive order to eliminate the Education Department and return education over to the individual states and local government. This all happened as thousands of complaints sat backlogged at the Office of Civil Rights. Of the almost 23,000 complaints that came into the Civil Rights Office in 2024, 8,400 of these allegations were of disability discrimination. The Education Law Center, the NAACP, and other advocacy groups, along with 20 states and the District of Columbia, have sued to stop the Trump administration's plans, alleging that these changes are illegal and pose a threat to the education of students from vulnerable populations. The Supreme Court, however, ruled in July that the Trump administration could move ahead while the case proceeded through the courts. We will continue to keep you updated on the changes taking place within the Department of Education and how it is impacting those in the disability community. Our next story is Atlanta City Council appoints Wyckoff to empty District 2 seat. Cardin Wyckoff was recently appointed to the City of Atlanta's District 2 council seat. The council seat became vacant when Amir Farrakhi stepped down to become head of the Galloway School. Cardin Wyckoff is a disability advocate and had previously served as chairwoman for the City of Atlanta's Accessibility and Inclusion Task Force. She has also served as a member of the MARTA Riders Advisory Committee and on the MARTA Army Board of Directors. We wanted to be sure to share this story because it is so important to see people with disabilities in government positions where they can have their voices be heard and the voices of the disability community be heard as well. Cardin, we wish you the best of luck in your new position there in Atlanta, and we hope to share future stories of the work that you're doing and the changes that you are helping to make there to benefit the disabled community in Atlanta. Our next story is the CDC stops their work from home disability accommodations. The Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, has stopped allowing their disabled employees who are either permanently disabled or temporarily disabled from working from home. This may be a temporary policy, and more clarification is needed on how long this policy will be in place. But the question that remains is this policy change legal? The Americans with Disabilities Act requires businesses to make reasonable accommodations for their disabled employees, and this may include providing a work from home schedule. The announcement came after there was a shooting at the CDC, and since then, the Health Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., ousted CDC Director Susan Monterez, and multiple senior scientists have resigned, accusing Kennedy of undercutting the agency's expertise. A spokesperson for HHS says that the CDC is following HHS policy and a January executive order President Trump issued on returning to in-person work. However, the union representative states that not allowing disabled employees to work from home, in fact, violates the president's executive order because the executive order requires companies to adhere to all applicable laws, which would include making reasonable accommodations for employees under the ADA. This article mentions that the CDC training notes that working from home increases productivity from the center's employees. We will continue to give you updates on all of these stories that were highlighted in this episode of the Disability News Report as we find out more information. We thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next episode of the Disability News Report.
This is the Disability News Report with host Arthur Aston.